Oh, guys, this is the great debate. It's the lounge room conversation, the Barbie banter. Are houses going to perform better than units in the future? And how have they gone in the past? Which is the better investment? Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
Good morning.
Mr. Josh Wapshott, aka the economist of property, the guy that's got all of the data. How are you?
I'm good. How are you this morning, Mark?
Yeah, really good. I'm excited about this chat. This is a common one we have in the office, that with buyers, with sellers, people asking for advice, and what a great forum to share it on here.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this one's been playing through my head a little bit this week, seeing some extraordinary prices across the unit market in the Northern Beaches, and it just had me thinking that where are the houses going to land over the next 5-10 years? It's quite crazy. If we wanted to start off with some data to show the growth over the last 5 and 10 years, Mark.
Sure. Did you think? Did you think? Oh my God! Like he told Mark told me so. Did you think that?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I remember that one of the first things I heard you talk about when I started Novak was the catch up for the units to the housing market over that 10-year ban. And tell you what, over those last 2-3 years, we've seen some really strong growth. To be exact, over a 5-year period, guys, we've had houses increase 60%. This is like based on a median price. Units have done 41, and then on a 10-year time frame, houses have done 112. Units have done 94. So I think last time we looked at this, there was a bit of a wider gap over that 10-year ban. It was more 170.
Are you sure? What suburb did you use?
Just the Northern Beaches as a general, across all the Northern Beaches as a median price.
Wow. So
Massive.
units have done.
We just had a bit of a pause. Guys, while we're still live, having problems on Mark's side, but yeah, massive growth across units, especially those last 3 years we've seen. That could be a combination of things like, obviously, affordability, number one, land tax. We're seeing a lot of investors traditionally go for freehold properties, moving into strata titled units, which just limits their exposure on land tax. So that's maybe what we're seeing. Sorry, Mark, just bring you back in. Just speak. I was just mentioning about a bit of the transition from investors. Traditionally they're always looking for freehold. With the introduction of new land tax, we've probably seen a bit of a change from those investors going into the unit market, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. And look, don't forget, the government's got a finger in this pie. I remember I saw a really great article or bio with Harry Triguboff. He's the biggest apartment builder in the country, and probably one of the most successful, prolific property guys in the business. And he said two things. He's one thing, but it came out with two things. He said, "I've got the best partners in the business," and everyone went, "Partners? I thought you always done it your own." He's like, "No." He said, "My best partners in the business are the Australian government and the Australian banks." I think when it comes to the forecast of how houses are going to perform and how units are going to perform, I think you've got to look at the posture of government. They have a huge part to play with increasing or decreasing taxes or incentives. So I think that if you think that the unit market or the house market organically just railroads everyone and everything, it doesn't. It has levers and controls, and most of those levers and controls are in the hands of governments and banks. So, I think also, guys, when you're thinking, do I invest or buy in a house or a unit, have a look at what the government wants to see in over the next decade or two, and I think you'll find they want to encourage units and that sort of living more than houses for a couple of reasons I could go into. But yeah,
Yeah, definitely. And I sort of think what we've seen across the unit market is more of that floor price. I know we spoke about this in another episode. I really think the build cost has been taken into account, building that new floor level for pricing in regards to units. We probably haven't seen that in the housing market yet, but I believe units are leading the way, especially in this climate we're in now. So that's where I'm thinking, are we in for a really good next 5-10 years for property holders in the home market, the housing market, freehold property? Because what you've sort of seen is that units push ahead due to that construction cost. And does that now follow through to houses? Because we've seen that gap start to close. Do they go
well,
and push that again?
there's also affordability behind that as well. So, sure, we've got our taxes and performance and stuff like that, but I think there's just sheer affordability and rental increases that's happening in the marketplace. Shit's really expensive at the moment. So I think if you can live as well in an apartment as opposed to a house, not bad, not bad. Not cool in the 60s and 70s. Very uncool to bring your family up in an apartment. Whereas I think now you may find that there's just that lifestyle on the back of affordability, heading towards apartments a little bit more. But let's not forget, Josh, this morning is about capital growth. It's about saying a unit's going to have better capital growth or a house is going to have better capital growth, irrelevant to a lot of the stuff, lots of units being built or houses being preferred to live in or any of that. We're talking about sheer hardcore growth. I think the biggest lesson that I've learnt from people in the marketplace the last 10 or 20 years, 30 years, is that supply is the enemy of capital growth. So supply is the enemy of capital growth. How would we apply that to these circumstances of units and houses, do you think, Josh, the economist?
Oh, well, this is exactly what I wanted to bring up. Obviously, with zoning changes, we've seen it recently with the load of density changes, another government lever, you'd call it, that has an effect on the market. And we've seen traditional homes, blocks, be turned into unit sites or development sites. So I feel as though there's a lot easier for us to create more supply in the unit market than it would be in the housing market. So, you don't see too many new subdivisions across the northern beaches. You see those new apartment blocks, and now they are only getting bigger because for developers to take on these sites now, they need to be. It's unfeasible to sell your original 9, 10, 11, 12 block. I think we'll see a new norm of, a minimum of 18, 20 apartments in those smaller blocks now. And that's really just due to the cost of construction, land cost, and all the red tape that comes along with these developments now.
And I think for me personally, to be real basic street talk for people, I think, guys and girls, if you want to know which one's going to perform better, houses or units, look to the area where there's a strong demand. Look to an area where there's a low supply. When I say low supply, I mean over the next 10, 20, 30 years. So when you're in areas where there's a shit ton of supply, like Parramatta or Chatswood or Ryde, or areas where there's potentially 8,000 units in the suburb, and now there's going to be 16,000 units in the suburb. That's a lot of supply. So that's going to put pressure on capital growth. That's going to put pressure on you making money. So people may be chasing a beautiful apartment in these areas. And if you have a look at Parramatta the last 10 years, I think their capital growth was 11%. So if you bought something for $1 million, you would have made 100 grand. It's just been atrocious. And I think the reason why is because of that model of supply. What I'm talking about, supply is the enemy of capital growth. There's too much supply. So stick to areas where there's not enough supply. And I love what you said, Josh, about the houses. It's pretty hard to get house supply in sought after areas. An hour out of Sydney, or an hour and a half out of Sydney, pretty easy for houses, but not in
Definitely.
these CBD, not in these metro suburbs.
Yeah, I seriously think we're heading into a 5-year period where we'll struggle to find a house on the Northern Beaches under $3 million. I think that's the way it seems to be heading.
I distinctly remember hitting the 2 million mark for a basic 3-bedroom house. I remember when we did it at an auction and everyone fell off their chair, and that'll happen for $3 million marks. That's pretty incredible.
It is, isn't it? It's a crazy machine to watch, observe, and it's hard to predict. But one thing's for sure, property appreciates. We've seen that not in the last 10, last 100 years. So history repeats.
In conclusion, before we go, what would be your one sentence answer to units doing better than houses?
I think houses. I think I've seen some crazy units prices go through, and I think there's a lot of value in freehold property because of that supply demand factor. So, what about you, Mark?
I think units in low supply areas, because guess what? I'm not just looking at the growth of the house. I'm looking at what it costs to run the house. I'm looking at strata levies. I'm looking at land tax. I'm looking at all the relevant costs associated with it. So I think really, I don't mean to divert from the subject, but I'm really looking at low supply areas because it's the enemy of capital growth. And then if I really had to put a magnifying glass over it, I'd say that stay in a low supply area, and I'd go a unit. I think they're the way of the future. A little bit of good unit. Might be biased though.
Well, it's good to have two different views. Good two ways to look at it. But thanks for this morning, Mark. I think it's going to be interesting to look back on this in 5-10 years' time and see where we're at.
And traditionally, they've always done similar. Just so you know, in the good areas, they've always done similar houses and units in terms of capital growth. So, thanks, Josh. Have a good day. Have a good day, everyone.
You too, everyone. Thanks, Mark.